But the question that I want to ask today is, well, is Money Mitch Keller back for the Pittsburgh Pirates? The organization hung a lot of responsibilities on this guy's shoulders this season. He was the only true vet coming into 2026 in this starting rotation. Yeah, you had Paul Skeens, who had a full season and a full complement of innings under his belt last year. But this is still only his second full season. And beyond that, you had a lot of young starters that have innings limits, and you were going to rely on Mitch Keller to be that dude in your rotation to help protect them and, transversely, to help protect the bullpen. And it started off well. I've seen a lot of people say, Mitch Keller was good for the first 2 games of the season. It's not really the case. Mitch Keller was good for the first 8 starts that he had this season. Through 8 starts, Mitch Keller had a 4-1 record and a 2.87 ERA. If that was the Mitch Keller we got all season long, we wouldn't be talking about, well, the Pirates just got back into a wild card spot with their victory on Monday night. We would be talking about them pulling away in the wild card and probably being, instead of 10 plus games back of the Milwaukee Brewers, we would be talking about them going into next week's 4-game series in Milwaukee saying, hey, you could potentially pull even. If that's the Mitch Keller we got all season, I think that's where the Pirates would be. Unfortunately, that just hasn't been the case, because since his start on May 13th against the Colorado Rockies, from that point until the All-Star break, he struggled. I think that's fair to say. In fact, it might be, using a lighter term than necessary when describing what Mitch Keller was able to do in those 10 starts between that Colorado game in May and the All-Star break a few weeks ago. In those 10 starts, Mitch Keller finished with a 2-5 record and a 6.75 ERA. We talk about elevated ERAs for the Pirates pitching staff this year, and in some instances you can look at it, especially when you're looking at spurts in certain games and certain stretches, and you can say, well, some of that's the defense, some of that's, other instances, but for Mitch Keller, he truly earned that 6.75 ERA between the Colorado start and the All-Star break. But since the MLB All-Star break, we're starting to see that early season Mitch Keller again. At Yankee Stadium, by all means, a very tough place to pitch. We saw Mitch Keller go 5 innings, allow just 3 hits, 0 earned runs on 2 walks, and 6 strikeouts. And that's with just 75 pitches. There were a lot of people, myself included, who thought he could have and should have came out for the 6th inning against the New York Yankees. Now, fortunately for the Pirates, they were able to pull that one out in extra innings, but nonetheless, a terrific first start back. And the question was then, okay, was this just a blip in the radar, or can he continue this? Well, next start came last night against the Arizona Diamondbacks, a team that is 6-4 in their last 10, that is starting to heat up and try to push for a playoff spot. In fact, they were sitting in a playoff spot, 1 game ahead of the Pittsburgh Pirates, and the Pirates needed somebody to set the tone in this very important series. Mitch Keller, able to once again go out there and do the dang thing. 5 1/3 innings pitched, 6 hits allowed, 2 runs allowed on 1 walk, and 4 strikeouts in 83 pitches. The first 5 innings, he soared through. The 6th inning, a little bit of bad luck here and there. A little bit of just placing the ball right where nobody can get it on weak contact. And he gave up 2 runs. But in that instance, in that game where you needed a solid outing from Mitch Keller, you got, once again, a solid outing from Mitch Keller. So back-to-back impressive starts for the Pirates veteran. And it is massive that they were able to get it. We mentioned this could be the most important series to date of the Pirates season. It's overused. I think everybody, it's a 162 game season with countless series. There's going to be a lot of times where it's going to feel like the most important series at that time of the season. The most important series is really the next series. And I'm not saying the series against Cincinnati. It's the next series that you're going into or currently in. You got to be where your feet are when you're in the midst of an MLB season because it's just too dang long to be anywhere else. So for right now, sure, this is the most important series of the season because it's the one they're currently playing. But it does carry some extra weight. One, because the Diamondbacks were a team that were a game ahead of you in the wild card standings coming into it. Now you're tied with them and tied, consequentially, for the final wild card spot. But also, this is a series that determines the tiebreaker because there's no more play-in games in the MLB. We talked about this in early July. Well, I didn't talk about it on this show, but a lot of people talked about it in early July whenever they played the Washington Nationals. They needed to come out of that series with the overall season record being in their favor against the Nationals so they could have the tiebreaker. And they do. And that looms large with the Nationals right on their heels in the wild card standings. The Pirates are now 3-1 after their victory on Monday night against the Arizona Diamondbacks. So they just need to win one of the next two, and they will have secured the tiebreaker with not just the Nationals, but with the Arizona Diamondbacks. And that is huge when it comes to playoff positioning. But if we're looking at the grand scheme of things, and outside of just this series and the matchup against the Diamondbacks, it would be massive if Mitch Keller can continue to do what he's been doing since the All-Star break. I get it's only 2 starts, but it's very, very positive signs from a guy that had a lot of responsibility on him early in the season and is going to have even more as this season goes on. Because those young starters that I mentioned earlier that have innings limits, they're starting to get closer and closer to them. Braxton Ashcraft, who knows how many innings they wanted him to pitch this year, but he's already over his career high. His career high came last year when he pitched 118 innings between the Pittsburgh Pirates and the AAA Indianapolis Indians. He is currently at 122 and a third innings pitched this year. So if he was only supposed to pitch 20, 30 pitches over that 118 limit, he's dangerously close. Now, do plans change? Do you have to be a little bit fluid? You would hope. So we'll see how they handle Ashcraft moving forward, but Bubba Chandler is starting to approach that. Fortunately for the Pirates, they're in this position where they're playoff bound. Bubba Chandler is starting to gain steam, and he still has about 30 innings till he reaches that innings limit. So he could probably get most of the way through the month of August before he reaches his career high, which was 131 and a third last season. So far, as of this recording, Bubba Chandler has 100.2 innings pitched. So he still has a little bit of time, but again, quickly approaching those innings limits that we all expect to have been set on Chandler and Ashcraft. And then you mentioned Jared Jones, who's probably right now the hottest pitcher of the Pirates starting staff. He's still coming off of an injury, and the Pirates are still treating him as such. His last game, he went above the 80 pitch mark for what I believe is the first time, but they've been pretty consistent with that 75 pitches and 5 ups. They're starting to maybe push him a little bit to 80, 85 pitches, maybe allow him to go back out if he's been extremely consistent and extremely efficient. They've given him the opportunity to go out in the 6th inning, but you're still, again, dealing with a starter who's in a limited capacity. You need to have Mitch Keller, not just to be the one guy, 2 guys if you include Paul Skeens, to be able to go deep in games, to be able to go into the 6th inning, hopefully routinely, to be able to go into the 7th inning at times, and to keep teams to 3 or fewer runs. But you need to have him do that in order to save your bullpen for when these other guys are pitching and aren't going to be able to go as deep into games. I don't want to see Carmen Mlodzinski pitching on days where Mitch Keller starts. I don't want to see Wilbur Dotel pitching on days that Mitch Keller starts. If he can prevent that and keep those players for Ashcraft, Chandler, and Jared Jones days, the Pirates are going to be much better off here as they push for a playoff spot. So it was a great, great matchup, great game on Monday night. You have to hope that continues, but we're seeing some very positive signs with Mitch Keller. And we'll see what happens with the MLB trade deadline coming up next Monday, August the 3rd. But if the Pittsburgh Pirates can get Mitch Keller to play at this level for the remainder of the season, it might be overused, but that could be one of the best trade deadline acquisitions they could ask for. And there are a couple instances where the Pirates can just ask for an internal option to step up in a certain way, and that'll be a de facto deadline acquisition. But there are far fewer that would make as big of an impact as Mitch Keller.